Vladimir Putin is showing absolutely no interest, that we're unlikely to see these talks to bring Putin to the negotiating table. It's unlikely that we see those come on the battlefield anytime soon. I don't think it's really high on Trump's agenda now. Well, I think what Zelensky is trying to do here is he's trying to show that Ukraine remains committed to and has an interest in diplomacy, particularly at a time where Vladimir Putin is showing absolutely no interest, mocking Zelensky just the other day, vowing to continue with the war until his aims are committed on the battlefield. The reality is that we're unlikely to see these talks with the European leaders and the E3, as you call them, advance enough to bring Putin to the negotiating table. Europe could potentially increase more sanctions further. They're working on the 21st sanctions package, but really we're in this muddled phase in the middle of the war where everybody's dancing around preparations for next steps if the tide continues to turn in Ukraine's advantage. But I don't think we should expect any kind of meaningful breakthrough in the short-term future. No, we're not at that stage. As your correspondent pointed out, gains have been entirely marginal on both sides for 3 years now. Many minor tactical battles, but no strategic breakthroughs anywhere. And while Ukraine has had greater success in retaking some territory in the south and has had those tactical innovations of drones that have brought the conflict into Russia itself as far afield as regular attacks in St. Petersburg, as we've seen in recent days, and crucially putting pressure on the Russian so-called land bridge to Crimea, they're also unlikely to shift things gravely. Now, there is the potential for breakthroughs. Both sides are obviously very much hoping for that, but I think it's unlikely that we see those come on the battlefield anytime soon. Well, Trump is, of course, busy with the war that he and Israel launched against Iran and dealing with the continued ramifications therefrom. I think it's instructive for those talks to look at just the kind of comments that you highlighted Trump often made around Ukraine with his promises of imminent progress on the front in Iran, too. We are expecting a potential slight U.S. re-engagement next month. It's been rumored that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, could make their first ever visit to Kyiv. But I don't think it's really high on Trump's agenda now. Now, for Ukraine, they know that the U.S. position is going to be really important in any future talks directly with Russia, or if there is more pressure brought to bear on the Kremlin. You know, the conflict rests on three pillars: the battlefield, where we already discussed things are marginal, Russia's willingness and ability to continue to fight, and Ukraine's willingness and ability to continue to fight. European leaders have stepped up there. They've led two very large loans to Ukraine over the last 18 months. Those will help see Kyiv fiscally through the next year. The slight advantage on the battlefield has decreased Ukraine's manpower losses as they've shifted towards a primarily drone-based fighting strategy. So Ukraine is hopeful there, but those other pillars need to change, and Washington could do more to address one of them or two of them, namely Ukraine's support and lack of support or tighter sanctions on Russia. But again, while Trump is distracted by events in the Middle East, I think we're very unlikely to see that, tragically. Fiscally, yes, Ukraine is now dependent almost entirely on European funding. U.S. funding has fallen back dramatically, more than 90% since the Biden administration. There are negotiations around some potential future support in congressional packages, but none of the big multi-billion-dollar ticket items that we've seen. But what's happening is that Europe is actually using its funds to buy a lot of American weaponry. So the U.S. is still very involved there. Its support is still crucial. Ukraine can't afford to lose its willingness to continue to provide those munitions. But the U.S. isn't paying for them as much now as it is the Europeans who are.